Okay, what we're going to talk about today is 5-minute life insurance sales concepts that you're going to use during your fact-finding process. But let's start off with, what is the purpose of a fact find? What are we trying to accomplish? And that is the crux of this. Most people are not, have a lot of trouble with fact finds, and are not doing fact finds because they don't understand why they need to do them. They're trying to sell product rather than helping people solve problems. And that's what a fact find is about, is helping people to identify their problems and then help them find a solution to those problems. And so it's asking the who, what, where, how, when, and why questions, which is what we talk about on our fact-finding DVD. But we also want to talk about needs versus wants. People know they need to do things, but do they want to do them? And that's the purpose, one of the purposes of a fact find, is to help them see why they need to do it and help them get emotionally involved so they want to do it. And it's all about transitioning from a salesperson to being the respected and trusted financial advisor. It's helping prospects to sell themselves. So as we go through these 5-minute presentations, each one of the presentations that we're going to talk about is to be done during different parts of the fact find. So if you're going to be talking about life insurance, you want to be doing the life insurance presentation that we're going to do. If you're going to talk about retirement, there's a place to do that on the fact find. All right, so let's get started. One of the first things we're going to talk about on our fact finding is, and one of the first questions we're going to ask is about retirement. Because what we want to do is find a need right away that the person has, and almost everybody needs a retirement program. Most people aren't saving enough. So we're going to talk about retirement, develop that need, and so we can help them determine how much money they need to have for retirement, how much income they want, and so forth. But anyway, let me jump into it here. If you think about it, Mr. Prospect, if you were to retire today, how much income would you want to have?
About 50,000.
About 50,000? All right. And based on that, by the way, is that before or after taxes?
After taxes.
All right. And what kind of tax bracket are you in now?
Probably around 30.
Okay.
Somewhere there.
And does that include state tax?
No.
Well, so it's probably about a 35% tax bracket today. Now, when you retire, do you think that your taxes are going to go up, or are they going to go down?
Probably stay the same.
Okay. Now, a lot of people tell me they're going to go up or go down. And if they tell me they're going to go down, let's think about that for a second. If you have accumulated a lot of money, are you going to be paying more or less income taxes?
Probably more.
Yeah. Well, let's stay with the 35%.
Okay.
All right. So that's approximately 33% more than what you have there, or after taxes, which means you're going to have, in order to generate this 50,000 of income, means you're going to have $75,000 of gross income. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. Now, if you had a lump sum of money to invest, what do you feel that you get for a consistent rate of return on that money?
5%.
Okay? All right, so if you get 5% on that money, how much money would you have to have invested in order to generate that $75,000? Well, if we said $1 million at 5%, right, that would be 50,000. Mm-hmm. So if we're talking about 75,000, we'd be talking about 1.5 million?
That sounds about right.
All right? So that's what you're going to need for retirement. Now, we're gonna be going through what you have already invested, but the way you're going right now, you think you're gonna have 1.5 million when you wanna retire at age 65?
No.
Okay, if I could show you how to have that 1.5 million, would you like to know how?
Sure.
All right, you notice how simple I kept this. Will the prospect absolutely understand this?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so there's no complications here. I'm not using technical jargon, and I'm using their numbers. Now, if Mr. Prospect had come back and said, well, I think I get 10% on that money. There's a couple ways you can handle that. One, the first way I would say is, we talked about getting that money consistently. Is 10% really, we really be able to get 10% consistently? And if he says yes, I'm going to use his numbers. But usually if you ask the question, is that really, is 10% really realistic in this case? Can if you're retired, are you going to want to take risk on that money? And to get 10%, how much risk are you going to have to take? So is that really realistic? And if he says yes, then that's what I'm going to go with. Obviously, if he says 20% and he thinks that's realistic, I'm going to pack my bags. Because there's no way I'm going to help this guy. He's, living pie in the sky. So what we want to do is come up with some realistic numbers, but the key is to use his numbers. Now, anything else you think I should talk about, Will?
Well, you didn't mention inflation.
Yeah, well, you notice, if somebody comes back, thank you, if somebody comes back with and says, well, you're conserving the principal, and I said, yeah, certainly am. Why? Because you notice we haven't talked about inflation at all in here. Now let's think about that for a second. What do you think you get for what do you think is going to happen with inflation over the next 5 years, 10 years?
Stay same as it is.
Okay, and what's it today? 4 or 5%?
That sounds about right.
So if you need $75,000 today, what are you going to need 10 years from now? And if you think about it, at 4% inflation, just times 10 years, that's 40% more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're not even counting compounding that inflation. So we're really talking about 50% more, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
So that means in 10 years, if you needed $75,000 when you retired, that you're going to need $37,000 more than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so 37 and 75 is what? 112? Actually, $112,500 is what you're going to need in order to generate the same money for the same standard of living. Right? So if you need, 112 to maintain the same standard of living, what are you going to need for 10 years from then? And 10 years from then. So when I figure out retirement and I need 1.5 billion, I do not use the principal. Because if I need 112,000 10 years from now, 1 year from now, I need 4% more than this. Almost 10% more the second year, and so forth. So, am I going to have to start digging into the principal?
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll try and get a better rate of return.
Right.
Okay? So, I think, this is an easy thing for them to understand, and if they have questions, it's easy to answer.